So, Des, thanks ever so much for joining us on what looks like your back garden.
Yep, sitting in the back garden. The dog's just lying down at my feet now, so nice sunny day.
Thanks ever so much, Devs. I mean, we're obviously going to talk predominantly about the promotion-winning season, which obviously culminated in that unbelievable day at Cardiff. But I just want you to set the scene for us, first of all, in terms of your career as a whole, the years that led up to that point of joining Blues. So Erdington born. Now, we all know, the people from the city at least, that you're surrounded by a lot of fans of white persuasion. What was that like growing up?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Erdington's in the heart of Villa territory, really. So it was a little bit difficult, to say the least, growing up, and especially when I, first signed for the Blues as well, because my mum and dad lived in Erdington for a long time. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? I started going down the Blues sort of late 70s, early 80s. I put a couple of posts on Facebook the other day about Frank Worthington and Mick Harford. They were the players, Tony Coate and people like that got me hooked on Blues. But I was right in the middle of Villa territory. So I still get it now. People say to me, "Oh, you was a Villa fan growing up," because I'm from Erdington. But I think those pictures that I found in the loft the other day will put that rumour to bed.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the reason you were a Blues fan, Des? Was that a family thing, or did you just start going down the Blues, or what?
Well, I can tell you straight away. My uncle Mick, he took me down the Blues. I remember it was the first pub I ever went in was the Rocket, which was not far from the ground. It's not there anymore. And then he took me down the Blues. So yeah, he took me down from an early age. And just, my dad's from just outside Glasgow, so he was always a Celtic fan. So I was always brought up following Celtic. And then obviously the first games I ever went to were Blues, in that era. So once I went down there and I seen Frank Worthington, I was hooked then.
Yeah. Of course, like all young lads who kick a ball, they dream of making it as a professional. And you started doing the sort of rounds through non-league teams, but find yourself, I suppose, at Stafford, which at the time, big conference club. And was that really the big first stepping stone towards hopefully making it as a professional?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought for 1 minute, I didn't dream of being a player, because I just never thought I was good enough, to be honest with you. But I sort of drifted back into the game. When I first left school, I wanted to be a chef. So I worked in a couple of hotels and restaurants. So I didn't really play till I was about, 17. Drifted back into Sunday football, did okay, and then sort of climbed the non-league pyramid, really. And obviously went to Stafford with Chris Wright and Brian Kenny, two great fellas. They were in the conference at the time. Stan Collymore was there, and I think we sold in that same season for £100,000, which was a record for a non-league player at the time. And it just all sort of went from there. So it was a 2-year period where I wasn't really playing, to all of a sudden I made my debut in the old First Division for Notts County. So it was a bit of a whirlwind, really.
Joined as a 19-year-old at Notts County. 4 years there. How good was that for your development? I mean, you joined as a teenager, and I suppose you leave as a man and as a professional.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Made some lifelong friends there, and met some great people. To make my debut in the top level of football. I remember my debut was against Kenny Sampson, and I never had a kick. I was a 19-year-old kid out of non-league, and he was at that time the record appearance maker for England. And just never had a kick against him. But it was fantastic. Really, really good club, Notts County. Great people there, great city. And I couldn't have wished for, the first 4 years of my career to be any better, really, with the grounding that they gave me. Made some lifelong friends there, in Michael Johnson, Andy Legg, Tony Agana, people like that. So real good club to start at.
Yeah, and then obviously rumours were of a homecoming. Is it right? Was it both you and Andy Legg sold for the pair? It was a move that saw you both.
Yeah, we came in a joint deal. I mean, myself, Leggy and Michael Johnson, we all used to share a house in Nottingham, so we were really, really close buddies anyway. But Jono had come a few months before, and we signed, me and Leggy signed in a joint deal. I do remember vaguely something being dodgy about that, because my non-league club had a salon fee. So there was something to do with a joint deal going on, but I've never really got to the bottom of that one. But yeah, it was brilliant to have the three of us back together, and obviously, to come to the club that I'd watched as a boy.
Yeah, Tat's bringing you in. When Devs first comes back to the club, joins his boyhood club for the first time. I mean, what are your earliest memories of Paul Devlin in a blue shirt? Be kind as you can, Tats.
The thing was then, it was the old revolving door. There was so many players coming in and out. It was difficult to catch your breath, and I'm sure Dev's probably must have walked into a dressing room and it was probably, where's the anti-dressing room? There's so many people in there. But I think you always knew what you were going to get with him, and from day one you could see what sort of player he was. Very industrious, hard-working, very aggressive, spiky. And I think, did we sign you as a forward, Devs, or was it to play wide?
Wing. I played probably 80-90% of my career as a right-sided midfielder, but I always had the option where I could play down the middle. To be honest with you, Baz, the first thing Baz says to me when he signed, can you take penalties? That was one of the first things he asked me, because we'd gone through a spell before then of missing loads and loads of penalties. So that was one of the first questions he asked me, which I thought was a bit strange. But no, predominantly a right winger, really, Tats.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were playing obviously under Baz for a few months before the change. What was that hectic?
It was brilliant. Real character, Baz. He does what he says on the tin, doesn't he, Baz? That's the way he is the way he is. But it was fantastic. And like Tat said, when I first went to Wash Hills, I think there was about 50 people on the training ground. He could have filled about 4 or 5 teams. But brilliant character, real football man. And I'm glad to say that it was only a brief spell, really. I think I've only played about 10-15 games under him, but really enjoyable.
Yeah. It takes you almost up into the 97 season, and the big change at the helm. Trevor Francis comes in. What was your early relationship like with TF? Many people talk about his ability on the training pitch, but what was it like?
Listen, he used to join in training. He was still the best player in training, and I think he would have been 50 odd then. I don't really remember Trevor as a player. He's a little bit before my time, but he was absolutely fantastic on the training pitch. My career didn't really blossom under Trevor. We didn't really see eye to eye a lot of the time. But, he's God at the Blues, isn't he, Trevor? But I never really wanted to leave, to be honest with you. So that was a bit upsetting that, they had to leave. But it was brilliant to get the chance to come back. But, when Trevor come in, it was just a massive boost around the place. The club's best ever player. Unfortunate, we've so nearly done it in a few years under Trevor. But just wasn't meant to be ultimately in the end to get us to the top level. But no, in training, sometimes if you'd fell out with him, you'd try and kick him in training. You couldn't get near him. It was still too good to even kick.
Was this decision was after a couple of years and purely a football, you want to go out and play more football because you sort of didn't quite see eye together?
Yeah, I drifted out the team, and to be fair, when a new manager comes in, they want to bring their own players in, and there was only a few really that sort of lasted, the Barry Fry era and Trevor, Grange and people like that. So I was out of contract. He'd brought in sort of Mike Newell, Paul Furlong, people like that, and the simple thing I said to him, I said, well, I want the same deal that Paul Furlong's on. And he wouldn't do it. So that was it really. I've heard various rumours down the years. I wanted this, I wanted that, and all I wanted, I said, give me the same deal as Paul Furlong, and I'll sign for however many years you want me to sign. But it just never worked out. But that's football, mate. That happens at every club every year.
Yeah. You end up moving north. A stint and an enjoyable one by all accounts. I know we've spoke about this before, but first of all, under Steve Thompson, who is obviously manager at Notts County, so reunited with him and a football club like Sheffield United for you as well. Good.
Yeah, brilliant. I actually played more games for Sheffield than I did Blues. So I had a brilliant 4 years there. Tomo saw me. I'd worked with Tomo and Colin Murphy at Notts County, proper football people. And I know we spoke earlier, mate. Very, very similar sort of club and fan base to Blues, really, Sheffield. A lot of time they'd lived in Wednesday's shadow, of the years when I was there. Similar sort of crowds and real good football club. I had 4 good years there. We made the playoffs. I think we made the playoffs semi-final in my first year there. I actually scored a goal in my first season there that kept Blues out of the playoffs. An equaliser away at Tranmere in the last minute. So I get reminded of that now and again down the years. But yeah, brilliant club, mate, and really enjoyed my time there.
I did see a goal this week, actually. I think our media team put out of you scoring against Blues, and you enjoyed the celebration in front of the cup. And a few fans were actually saying that it was quite refreshing to see you enjoy your celebration. You remember that one?
I do, yeah, because we played Blues. It was funny. I think it was either a New Year's Day or a Boxing Day, 2 years in a row. And the first year, that goal that I scored when we won 2-0 was the second year. The first year, I think I don't know what the score was. I know we got beat, but I got unmerciful stick. And I did the second. I won't tell you what they were singing, but to have St Andrews, it was a full house as well, so 28, 30, whatever it was. there's only one greedy so-and-so, and Devlin is a this, Devlin is a that. So, yeah, I mean, I did try and mute the celebrations, but I couldn't help it. But it was strange, man. Obviously, scored a header. I didn't score many headers anyway. And then to score it in front of the Tilton, I was half thinking of running and celebrating there. So I had it on my toes and tried to run down the other end. But, yeah, it was a strange one. But, I love my time at Sheffield. And, I think if you're playing for a club and you score a goal, you should celebrate. I didn't go overboard, but at the end of the day, I was playing for Sheffield then, and I wanted to win. It's simple as that.
Yeah. I've just got a little quote here. Whether this is true or not, you'll be able to tell us. But it's a quote that's attributed to you to said that you'd walk over broken glass to return to Blues when an initial loan bid was rejected to come back to Blues from Sheffield United. Is that something that you remember saying?
Yeah, it was a real strange time. Because I just signed a 4-year contract with Sheffield, and to be honest, Neil Warnock was class. He was brilliant with me throughout the whole thing. And I'd had an initial approach from Steve Bruce when he was at Palace to take me down there, but obviously he came back to Blues, and are you interested? Would you come? Yeah. And then it sort of all broke down. I didn't hear anything, and I'm ringing Michael Johnson. And John, I've burnt my bridges at Sheffield here now. I've put in a transfer request. I've told them, and it sort of fell apart. And then, like I said earlier, David Sullivan was instrumental in getting it all going again. But yeah, I wanted to come back. I felt I had unfinished business. I didn't like the way I left in the first place. Under a bit of a cloud, and I felt that a lot of what went on when I left was unfair on me because people didn't know the true reasons. But saying that though, I probably didn't leave Sheffield United in the best of circumstances to come back to Blues. But once I knew Brucey was interested and it was on the cards, it was just get it done. Really, I wanted to come back.
Yeah, initially on a month's loan. Tats was Devs, if you remember that this far back, the type of player that Blues were after at the time. You're sort of looking at a time where you're trying to build that momentum towards the playoffs and get over the line. Dev's the sort of hometown boy that we potentially needed at the time.
Yeah, I think Bruce had come in and he was quite brutal. He was making a lot of changes. He just felt the big freshening up was needed. I think obviously what Devs could bring down that right hand side and or up front at the time was, he's adding more and more pieces to the jigsaw. I think, and I think we've spoken before, Dale, that sort of squad that was assembled, the squad that did get up, was a very wily squad. There's a lot of experience, a lot of battle-hardened players who not only could play and add quality, but if you wanted to go toe-to-toe against them, you'd have a good job because they wouldn't back down as well.
Yeah, is that sort of your take, Dev? That group of players that Brucey managed to assemble, it wasn't just ability, but the bit of steel as well amongst them and experience.
Definitely, good players, good solid pros, Jeff Kenner, Grange, people like that. But a lot of Tats just said, if you wanted to have a little bit of a scrap as well, we could. And the game that always sticks out in my mind about that is the first Villa game when we got promoted. I often speak to Jeff Horsfield about this. We hadn't beat in the tunnel. We could see we was going balmy in the tunnel, and you could see they were terrified. And obviously we went on to win the game. It was the incoming game and that, but. That team, real good pros, good players, and I think the best thing about those teams, Tats just touched on something earlier on. You could probably pick each one of those that squad of players or that 11 players, and you'd know what you was going to get from them most games. And I always remember talking to Brucey about it, years down the line, and he told me one of his biggest regrets was that he broke that team up too quickly. We should have probably given it, add to it like he did with the likes of Upson and Cunningham and Sav and people like that. But he probably broke it apart a little bit too soon.
Yeah. Before obviously reaching the Premier League, it was that season that you really helped to kickstart. I mean, we've spoken about this before, but you look at pivotal moments, pivotal games in seasons, and to be 2-0 down against Wolves, who were high-flying that season, vying for a promotion spot and an automatic spot, managed to claw ourselves back into the game. You score on the day as well. And that really does start what became an unbelievable run that ends up with us sneaking into the playoffs as well. So how much did momentum play a part in the way we finished that season?
Yeah, very much so. We finished really strong. I mean, I remember that game because that was actually my last game on loan. I was due to go back after that game, and it was touch and go whether I actually came back. There was a bit of to and fro between Blues and Sheffield. So I remember the game. I mean, I always used to score against the Wolves. I probably scored more against them down the years than any other team. But there was a game as well. I think Watford. I think we were 4-0 up or something like that, and it came back to 4-3. And I can't remember whether we won the game or not. And to me, that was the game really that I thought, oh, we've got a chance here. Because I think we went about the last 12 or 13 games unbeaten, something like that. But it was, we went in with momentum and, fantastic run towards the end of the season. Difficult semi-final against Millwall. You don't want to be playing Millwall home and away, and then obviously culminating with the Cardiff final. Yeah. But we had a great run. We just sort of picked up that little bit of momentum that last third of the season.
Yeah, we spoke about this with Darren Carter, Tats, but you were saying that almost at the start of that season, no one were almost putting us as favourites to be promoted. It was supposed to be sort of a season where Steve Bruce was building on the work that TF had put in, but it all seemed to come together and click at the turn of the year.
Yeah, and definitely for me that Wolves game. I remember Dave Jones. I think Brucey was saying that Dave Jones was in his office or chatting to him beforehand, and they were talking about their end of season celebration in the Bahamas with Sir Jack Hayward. They were that far clear. And then I think Dev's goal, that one off that volley off the outside of right foot, I think finish that off. And then from there, I've just got my book now, and it's it was where's the game? It went to Bradford 1-3-1, went to Norwich 1-0. Olivia Tebley came in. You had the derby against Coventry. It just sort of snowballed, and things just sort of click into place. I mean, did you feel that at the time as well, Debs? That after 3 years in a row of playoff heartache, that hold on, let's just have a go. We've got a chance here.
Yeah, there was just a feel about it, and we bought Tebbs, and I played with Tebbs at Sheffield, and he's quite an underrated sort of player, Tebbs. He was hard as nails, and he'd do a job, and Brucey loved him. But yeah, obviously I was only coming back on loan, so within a week or two, you got that feeling, this could happen here, this could happen. And we'd been so close in previous years with Trevor, and we just couldn't quite get over the line. And then, look, the Wolves game and that Watford game that I'm on about, and like you say, you just get that feeling. I mean, listen, when I signed back, if you'd have said to me, do you think you'll be winning the playoff final, I'd have probably said no. But the more I was there, the more you got that belief. And I think that, like you said, that snowballed throughout the club. People did actually start to believe that, we could do it.
Yeah, eventually cement the place in the playoffs at the end of that unbelievable run. 2-0 home win against Sheffield United. Funnily enough, as Devs' dog remembers, Jeff Horsfield and Martin Granger on the score sheet. Percy getting sent off. Devs, you played an hour in that game before Damien Johnson replaced you. But was that a bit of a weird one to go and enjoy, eventually cementing and confirming a playoff place at St Andrews against the former club?
Yeah, it was difficult. Like I say, I'd had 4 years there, which was great. But, Blues was always my team. I think the Sheffield and Watford and Notts County fans will forgive me for saying that I was always a Blues man, really. Blues and Celtic were my teams growing up. So that was always my aim. It was unfortunate that sometimes you have to play against your former club and score. But I'm part of the game, mate. I enjoyed my time at all the clubs I played for. But I can't moan at what I achieved at Blues. To get us back up after, I think it was 16 or 17 years out the top flight was a dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely. You've already touched upon it a little bit, but I want to go into a bit more detail about the away leg in that playoff semi-final at the Den. I mean, most people recount not just what happened on the pitch, but the chaos that ensued afterwards, the hours locked in for the away support. Just tell us about the atmosphere that night as well, and the game itself. What are your memories from that night at the Den?
I can't really remember a lot about the game, to be honest with you. Obviously, I remember Stern getting a goal, and the biggest thing that I remember really is that it was like a war zone, and we couldn't go off the pitch. So we're all stood on the pitch, and at the time, the Millwall chairman was Theo Perfitis, the Dragons' Den geezer, and I remember him and a couple of his, barmen coming down with crates and crates of lager and giving us them on the pitch. So that's my abiding memory, really, drinking lager on the pitch, watching helicopters go around and listening to the noise. But yeah, I mean, it was a funny night, and they still managed to put the windows through on the bus. I don't think we left till about 12:30, 1 o'clock, and they still managed to smash one of the windows. So crazy night, and there was lots of hassle and trouble after that game, but crazy night. I don't really remember the game too much, to be honest.
Tats, we spoke about this one, and I think you mentioned before this the chaos after the game and fans being locked in, the club not being allowed to leave and stuff. It really was just an unbelievable night.
It was surreal that, as Dev said, everyone was just on the pitch in the middle of the centre circle.
Yeah.
Just in, and helicopters were whirring overhead. You could hear sirens outside, and the police just said the safest place for you is to stay on the ground. You're not going yet, and no one bothered. It's like, fine, okay. Yeah, it was crazy. But one of the things that, again, I mean, like Devs, you only remember bits and bobs of the game, and that sort of almost an iconic moment when Olivier Tebeli tackled Stuart Nethercott without his boot. That just summed everything up, and he was chasing Tim Cahill all over the pitch, and it was just a fantastic victory, and the way it came as well, because I think everyone thought after Millwall had drawn 1-1 at St Andrews, I thought that's it, they're favourites, they're through, and no one really gave us that much of a chance, to be honest.
Yeah, of course, that puts you into the playoff final, at least a step further than we managed in the previous near misses. Yeah, there's 10 days between that Millwall game and Norwich. Do you remember any of the build-up or the hype? Was there a confidence? Was there a nervousness? Do you remember any of that?
I think everything, you try and be confident, but you're nervous. But I tell you the abiding memory, we practiced penalties religiously every day leading up to that game. And obviously, it's just folklore, and it does scores a winning penalty. But that's the thing that stands out in my mind. I mean, they were a good team, Norwich, and obviously, going the goal down, you're thinking, bloody hell, it's not going to happen, is it? But that was the thing that always stuck out in my mind, that after we'd trained every day leading up to that, we'd have the penalty takers and we'd practice. And I always thought in my own head, we ain't losing if it goes to penalties, because we had some real good penalty takers. So that leading up to the game, I mean, obviously you never want it to go to penalties, but that was always the thing that I remember, is that we were that well drilled at taking them. I was always confident if it ever went to that stage.
Yeah. Do you ever remember the players? I think it was Jono had a camera, and if I'm right, you were rooming with him at the time, and he was walking around with a camera. We watched it this week, actually. Remember that time at the team hotel, and that calmness before the storm?
I think it's calmness. I think it's nerves. I mean, you're nervous. It's one of the biggest games, if not the biggest game that you'll ever play in. When you look at what's at stake, financially for the club, and the big thing for me was that we'd had 16 years out the top division. I always remember. I mean, I've probably only watched that game once or twice, but now and again people put clips on. I remember penalties, and there's two blokes sitting in the crowd, arm in arm like that, and the one of them goes like that, as if just that drained. And I always say that it was one of the best and the worst moments of my life, walking up to take that penalty, because you're thinking, if you miss, you're going to be especially me being a Brummie and a Blue Nose as well, you're going to be remembered forever the one that missed. And I had cramp in my calf, so I couldn't have as long a run up as I normally do. But I laugh when I hear people say, well, professional footballers shouldn't miss a penalty. Let me tell you, you got 75,000 people watching the whole of the world, and that goal looks about the size of a matchstick when you're taking that penalty. But fantastic, yeah, just a great day, and the celebrations went on for about 3 or 4 days after, to be honest.
Yeah, but it did. Karts was saying to us this week, Tats, he always knew Devs was going to smash it. Was that your technique, Devs, whenever it was penalties?
Yeah, the way I looked at it, if I hit it hard and I don't know where it's going, then it's going to be hard for the keeper. I tended just to blast them. I always sort of hit it to my left or straight down the middle. But if you don't blast it and the keeper guesses right, he's got a good chance of saving it, hasn't he, and keeping it. I don't think if you blast it, even if he saves it, he's not going to hold it, so you might have a chance of a rebound. And I was lucky, really. I think I took about 20 penalties down the years, and I only remember missing 1 or 2. So my strategy worked out. I did miss the same one twice in one game for Sheffield, though, funnily enough, which was a nightmare. But yeah, it was. I have the crack with Horse about this. I said, yeah, you big brave Barnsley centre forward. When we're looking for the penalty takers, he was hiding behind the dugout, I think. Or so, it's a difficult thing, especially when you're on a stage like that, to take a penalty, because you're expected to score, aren't you?
Yeah. As we heard, he usually wanted 5th penalty because, according to Karts, he wanted to be the
glory.
Yeah. So Daz Carter walks up. I mean, what was that like as an 18-year-old? I know he'd been part of the group for the few months that you were there. So was there confidence that, it was almost like the script was written? He was an 18-year-old lad. He was born and bred as you were. So unbelievable story when it concludes.
Yeah, I mean, Daz a good player, Daz. And, like I say, we'd practice those penalties, so I was confident. But obviously you're thinking, you always got that 18-year-old. But I think the fact that he was 18 and probably a little bit naive to everything, I think that went in his favour, you know, and it's one of those iconic moments that'll last for as long as the clubs last, won't it? When he scored 18-year-old Brummer, get us back into the top flight. You know, you couldn't have wrote the script any better.
Yeah, Tats was saying he was shouting yes, yes, yes from the press box when that penalty eventually went in. You've said the celebrations lasted a few days. I'm going to ask you what you did remember of the celebrations. I know it might be difficult, but the hotel afterwards and the days after, what was that like, knowing you'd done the job?
Oh, it was just fun. I mean, we had a beer at the ground, and then we went back to I think it was the Vale of Glamorgan. I think that was where we stopped. And I just remember there was quite a lot of football. Sam Allardyce was there because he was a pal of Bruce's, and Sullivan and Gold. And everyone was in there. Pesh was in there, and just remembered it. But basically, it was 4 days drinking. Then we had the back at St Andrews, and then we had the civic reception at the town hall, and the open top bus ride, and everything. It was just 4 days mayhem, really. But it was great, you know. Former players come to join in, and managers that didn't manage us was there. Just real. You know, I remember the open top bus parade. My lad, who's 18 next week, was only a baby, and Sally dropped me off at the time. He'd literally a couple of weeks old. And then Sally and Sean ended up on the bus with us. Brucey's gone, get them on. So we're driving all around Digbeth and all around town and on the bus. But it was brilliant. You know, it's something that'll stay with me for, you know, to the day I die.
Unbelievable. And to think that when you joined Blues on that initial 1 month loan, and then it was extended to 3 months, and come the end of the 4 or 5 months you were there, you end up being part of that group who are now in the Premier League. Must have just been an unbelievable feeling for you.
Yeah, it was. You know, obviously I was just so grateful to get the chance to come back, but to be involved at that particular era, you know, that getting us back up, and we stopped up comfortable that first season, you know, and I left the season after that. But it was a brilliant time, real good time. There was a good vibe about the place, good vibe about about the club. So, you know, just thankful to be a part of it, mate.
Yeah, Devs, you signed permanently again in that May, and played 30-odd games in that first season of the Premier League. You were playing for Scotland as well. I mean, to be back in the Premier League, I mean, Tats was saying, Cartsy's first challenge in the Premier League was against Patrick Vieira. I mean, what was that like to be back in the Premier League playing with proper world-class players every week?
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. I'd had a very, very brief taste of the top level in my early career, 2 or 3 games for Notts County, but then obviously, you know, predominantly I played in the Championship. So to get the chance to do that, and I got sent off in a pre-season game up in, I think it was Livingston. So I actually missed the first 3 games. I was suspended. But then, you know, to come back into the Leeds game, obviously get a goal and win, and you know, they were a real good team at the time, Leeds. But it was brilliant. But I always remember it was an eye opener. I remember standing in the tunnel at St Andrews. I think it was a night game. We played Arsenal, and just standing next to them, looking how big they were. Bergkamp, Vieira, Thierry Henry, people like that. They were like racehorses, you know. So it was a bit of, and I remember it comes on the goals thing on Sky. Perez just cuts inside, and I come about 100 miles an hour, try and foul him. And he skips round me. I'm missing by about 3 foot, and I just go sliding out of shots. And you know, playing against people like that, and Shearer and Zola, and it's just fantastic experience.
Yeah,
sorry, Dad. Just going back to that Leeds game, I think the goal you scored, that was the first home goal in the Premier League. Was that corner routine? Was that a worked one or just something off the cuff?
No, we had
right back to the edge of the area, and you just smashed it bottom corner.
Yeah, no, Mark Bowen, who was a fantastic coach, we'd worked on that for, you know, leading up to that game, because obviously I'd missed those first 3 games, and then Brucey put me back in for I think it was Everton, Blackburn, and Arsenal were the first 3 games, and I'd missed those. But we worked on that week leading up. But the only thing is, every pro will tell you, mate, you work on a set piece like that, very rarely does it happen, and it happened first time, so we couldn't use it again. So that was it out the window. But that was the only time I ever know in my career that we worked on a routine and it came off the first time. But yeah, we'd practiced it a lot, mate, that week.
Yeah, as Des was saying, they just felt that was the feel-good factor around the place. You got promoted back to the Premier League, to the top tier, or to the Premier League for the first time. And the stadium was absolutely rocking in those first few years. Do you look back on that as a journalist and remember that as a golden time in the club's history?
Yeah, it was interesting. I remember when Brucey came back with Hull, and I was chatting to him pitch side, and he was looking around going, you know what, it never replaced that. I said, what do you mean? He said, that season, getting up for the first time in 16 years, he says, and the atmosphere, he said, I'll never replace that. And wherever he's been since, it's difficult to quantify. You can't explain it, how much it meant to all the Blues fans. We've not been in the top flight for 16 years, first time in the Premier League. And that whole atmosphere, I mean, and you mentioned it earlier, the Villa game at home was just unbelievable. I've never, even all the old duffers in the main stand were bouncing up and down singing Villa songs and stuff like that. I've never known the whole ground to be like that. Very, very rarely. And everyone, it was just a massive coming together and a real generational thing. It was, and Dev said there, Brucey also, he said that to me as well, that he probably broke up that team too quickly, tried to bring in supposedly better quality players and move on to this next level. And if he'd have done it a bit slower and kept the team's identity, it may be the team that would have had more longevity in the Premier League and not got relegated again after 4 years. But no, those were great times, and you can't replicate them basically in a nutshell. It was unique.
Yeah, there's a lot of the time we ask players, and you often hear them talking about the loudest or most malicious or unbelievable atmospheres they've played. I mean, you've done a playoff semi-final and playoff final. You've done a win over Villa at the first time in 17 years. I mean, where do they all rank in terms of atmospheres that you played in?
I mean, obviously the playoff final was great, but I think that first Villa game at home, it was like the whole stadium was moving and vibrating. So I've been fortunate. I've played in a packed Hampden in a Euro qualifier in Scotland, Germany, and playoff final. But I'd have to say, if you put me on the spot, I think that first Villa game at home would be the one. It was just absolute. Like Tat said, the whole place was rocking, and obviously to go on and the incoming incident to go on and win the game. It was just unbelievable. There was another good couple of days celebration after that game as well, by the way.
You were on the move again, Devs. Again, was it a decision to go and play football? Just felt that you were out of favour
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think I was 30. I'd 31, and to be fair to Bruce, he said, "Listen, you're not going to play every week, but I think I still had 2 years left on my contract, but I always wanted to play. I was never, ever, to me, if you're a footballer, you should want to play. If you're happy to go there and sit on the bench, then I have to question your ambition, really. So it was great. It was all amicable. It was brilliant. I'd come back and I thought I'd sort of set the record straight a little bit. I'd been involved in a fantastic couple of year period, in the club's history. I wasn't going to play every week. I wasn't the player I was in my first spell there, and I wanted to play, and it was. It was great to get the chance to go to Watford and have 3 years down at Watford. I always wanted to play. You have long enough where you can't play football, so I didn't want to waste any time sitting on benches. I was lucky, really. Majority of my career at all my clubs, I was a starter, and when I wasn't a starter, I left. But I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave in the first place. But sometimes you just got to accept that time moves on.
Yeah, it sounds like just from your tone, Devs, that you were pleased and satisfied that you did go back and the unfinished business was dealt with. I mean, there's no better way of going back to the club that you'd left, your hometown club as well, being involved in a promotion and playing in the Premier League. So from your point of view, was that mission accomplished as soon as you'd done that?
Yeah, very much so. Like I say, I mean, I didn't like the way that it all, I left in the first time. I felt it was great to go back. I'd played with Steve Bruce. He was my manager at Sheffield. I played with him at Blues, and then he bought me. So I knew Brucey well. Mark Byrne was a fantastic coach, and it was just, it was great to go back there, be involved in what we were involved in, and then I felt the second time I left, I can leave with my head held high now.
If you'd have said to the young Paul Devlin whilst he was at Bolton, St Michael's, or at Tamworth as a young lad, the career he'd had, I mean, what would you have said then? When you look back on it all and what you've achieved, you must be amazingly proud and satisfied with what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never have dreamed in a million years that I'd have done what I've done. A young raggy-ass kid from Erdington running around playing football. But no, it was brilliant. Everything seemed to come late. I didn't turn pro till I was 19. I didn't really get to the Premiership till I was 30. First international cap at 30. So yeah, it was brilliant, mate. But I'd have never dreamed in a million years that I'd have done it.
Again, much like Grange, Tats, because of the way Devs played, did that resonate with supporters during that time as well?
Yeah, and like you mentioned, with Grange as well, Grange had this reputation of being sort of a hard man, tough tackler, and Devs as well is very competitive, but you shouldn't neglect that the quality that both of them had. And Dev's, you know, he scored some very good goals. He could play up front. You know, again, I think Dev's, you know, very underrated quality-wise. He added a lot to the team at the time. And then, as you've seen at Sheffield and Watford, he was very highly thought of there as well. So, you know, but yeah, as another Brummie lad, although, you know, playing for Scotland, still not sure where that's coming from. But no, he's fantastic, great servant. You know, and like you said, one of our own, and you know, we're always forever grateful for everything he did for us.
Yeah, and Dev's, I suppose, the biggest testament is still involved in the club as well, still roaming the corridors on match days every so often. So still enjoy coming down to watch.
Yeah, brilliant. I love, you know, I do the club ambassador stuff along with Ian Clarkson, so it's great. I'm like a little kid at times when I get to host one of the players, Tony Colton, or people like that, Mick Harford or Noel Blake, that I used to watch down the years. So I sort of revert back to that 10-year-old on the terraces when I get to meet players like that. But it's brilliant. I've met some fantastic people doing it the last, I think, 3 years now. I've been doing it. You know, obviously Frank Worthington, Mick Harford, Colton, Jim Greenoff, people, you know, too many to mention. But it's fantastic as a Blues fan to actually spend a couple of hours with, you know, some of these fantastic ex-players that we've got.
Yeah. Well, Des, thanks ever so much for taking time out to have a chat with us. And like we say, you've lived every young Blues fan's dream in the sense of playing for the club, coming back, playing in the Premier League, and being part of an iconic squad. So thanks ever so much. It's been great to hear from you, mate.
More pleasure, mate. Cheers, pal.
Cheers, Dev. Cheers, Tats.